The Clone Wars are nearing their end. I'm John Berry and welcome to my review of Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7 Episode 10 Shadow Apprentice. So yeah, The Clone Wars is getting near the end. And not just the series, but the actual in-universe Clone Wars. We'll get into there is a scene where Ahsoka has contacted Obi-Wan that we learn that Obi-Wan is about to go off to face Grievous. So the second half of the episode is taken concurrently with the Battle of Utapau and Obi-Wan's duel with Grievous. So while Obi-Wan is dueling Grievous, Ahsoka is dueling Maul. That's essentially what's going on. Though I do want to say that the duels are very different. In different contexts, different really everything about them. Because Maul's duel with Ahsoka it's framed very differently than the duel with Grievous or any other duel for that matter, because Ahsoka's dueling to capture Maul and Maul is not dueling to kill Ahsoka, mainly because of things that Maul knows that everyone else in the galaxy doesn't know, except for Dooku, who's now dead, and Darth Sidious. So yeah, basically, a big takeaway from this episode is that Maul is still mad at Sidious and doesn't want Sidious to succeed. That's very much one thing that we do learn in this episode, which definitely is interesting and puts some things into context for when we see Maul in Rebels. Yeah, he still wants revenge on Obi-Wan, but at the same time, he kind of doesn't want the Emperor to succeed with his grand plan, which I think is very interesting and really gives a lot of character to Maul that we, before Rebels, before the Clone Wars brought him back to life, for lack of a better term, that we hadn't seen. Maul is probably one of the characters from the film that had the least amount of character development that we've gotten a whole bunch of character development since. And for a major character, I should say, not a side character who, yeah, you're going to see every now and then, but it's not a huge deal, is my best at describing it. But why is it? Well, apparently sometime between his escape from when Sidious was imprisoning him to returning to Mando, he had a vision that involved basically the fulfillment of Palpatine's grand plan and Order 66 somehow. So he basically wanted to lure Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker to Mandalore so he could kill Skywalker. He's more focused on Skywalker in this moment than he is on Obi-Wan, which I think is very interesting of him. Because just go back to Rebels. Remember, what was the last thing Maul said? Because remember, in his Apprentice, Twin Sons, I think it was? Oh, I forget the exact episode, but the final time we see Maul alive canonically, the last time he was alive in the in-universe timeline, he comes, he finds Obi-Wan, and asks Obi-Wan, why is he on Tatooine of all places? Is he protecting something or someone? And then they size each other up, and Obi-Wan quickly defeats Maul. I think Maul did want to be kind of taken out of his misery. It's a read I do have on the situation. I don't know if it's the case, but it's a read I have taken. But his final question to Obi-Wan was, is he the chosen one? Basically asking, is the person Obi-Wan is protecting Luke the chosen one? And Obi-Wan says yes. And that says something. Maul, despite all his hatred and anger and desire for revenge on Obi-Wan, it's almost like he has a great desire on Palpatine, even if he knows that he can't face Palpatine himself. Which is, I think, kind of interesting, but literally, he organized this whole thing for apparent revenge on Obi-Wan just to stop Palpatine from turning Anakin to the dark side. Maul has probably some of the most insane and complex motivations out there. He even offers Ahsoka to join him to stop Palpatine's plan from fulfilling. Granted, that would involve killing Anakin, which we know Ahsoka cannot do, and she does not want Anakin to die, so she rejects Maul's offer, but she is very tempted. Like, she says, okay, but one question first. Basically, what do you want with Anakin? And then Maul's answer basically gave her the definitive, yeah, I can't do this. Because she couldn't kill Anakin while Maul can, because he doesn't have any kind of emotional attachment. But the thing is, like, we know everything does work out. You can't see it, but we do know everything will work out. We do know that everything will work out in the long run, but in the short run, Maul, his methods may not be the best way. He's not totally wrong. Palpatine has groomed Anakin to be his apprentice and will get Anakin as his apprentice. Like, there's no way. That's the Shadow Apprentice in the title. I was wondering, why is the title Shadow Apprentice? But then started thinking about it, and it's because of Anakin. Anakin's the Shadow Apprentice that Maul is basically, well, not Maul it's talking about, but is what the title is talking about. The Shadow Apprentice of Darth Vader. And Maul wanted to deny that to Darth Sidious. And Maul wanted to deny Darth Sidious his Shadow Apprentice, for lack of a better term. And that also makes me rethink that makes me think, who is the Phantom Menace? No, is it Maul? No, it's Anakin. It's like, it really goes all to, when you think about it, the Phantom Menace is Anakin, just like the Shadow Apprentice is. Which is kind of an interesting thought, but the pieces are really coming together in this. And because the timeline-wise, we're almost to Order 66. If Maul is captured about the same time as Obi-Wan defeats Grievous, that means Order 66 is going to happen in the first half of the next episode, because this episode picked up exactly where the last episode left off. I mean, exactly. Like, you'll be able to put them together and you wouldn't notice any scene change. Like, same location, same everything. We are getting so much closer to the conclusion of the Clone Wars and Order 66. I still wonder what is going to happen. We have a general idea. We know that we don't know for sure if Rex is going to start Order 66 but snap out of it or what. He says he got his inhibitor chip removed. I still think his inhibitor chip never worked, but that's a whole nother thing. But I would love for it, this is what I hope happens, is that the next episode opens up and we have Rex, Bo-Katan, and Ahsoka interrogating Maul, because that's probably what's going to happen. And then Rex gets a communication and Maul says, don't answer that. I kind of want that to happen. And I don't know why, I just kind of do. And I have a feeling, because we know at some point Rex is going to get his inhibitor chip removed, but how? He's on Mandalore. There are non-clone doctors on Mandalore, I'm sure. You see where I'm going with this? I think that is going to happen. And we know at some point Maul is going to get away. Unless this next episode does pick up exactly where this episode just finished, with Maul being captured by Ahsoka and the clones, and that's when Order 66 comes. That's also a very likely point. I also wondered, because Maul sent his remaining Mandalorian supporters basically on a final battle against the Mandalorians and the clones under Bo-Katan and Ahsoka. And I wonder if the reason why he did was not so much to give them a glorious death in battle like he claimed during his motivational speech. Like, basically he knows things are basically lost for them, but he wanted them to have a warrior's death, and that's what he's claimed. But what if his main reason was actually to thin the ranks of clones? Like, at this point, with Maul, I can only consider him an antagonist. I don't think I can consider him a villain. At least not in this arc. He's portrayed as the villain, but he's more just an antagonist. I wouldn't even say an anti-hero. Maybe an anti-villain might be a better way. No, a villain who happens to do some good stuff. But it is just this weird situation is the best way I can describe it. Maul doesn't want his old master to succeed, or succeed without him. It could go either way, but anyhow, he's very much behaving like a Sith and wanting to betray his former master, so we gotta give him that. And when it happens to line up with the goals of the Jedi, it's the Jedi actually knew Palpatine was the bad guy. But I want to go back real quick to talk about the conversation Obi-Wan and Ahsoka had, where Obi-Wan says that he's off to face General Grievous, and that he can't send anyone to help. And Anakin asks, "What about Anakin?" And Obi-Wan asks to speak with Ahsoka quietly, and tells Ahsoka that the Jedi Council has ordered Anakin to spy on the Supreme Chancellor, and guess what Ahsoka's reaction was? Pretty similar to Anakin's reaction, like, no, wait, that's wrong. And of course, Ahsoka also mentions that Anakin has a good friendship with the Chancellor, and that's not a good thing either. And, well, it's not a good thing, but basically another reason why this is not a wise situation. And what Obi-Wan says is that, he says this to Ahsoka, is that sometimes the Jedi Council is not always right. Which I think is very, it's a good thing for him to say. And he wanted Ahsoka to say that to Anakin. We know, and then, of course, then there's an attack, and more stuff happens, and Ahsoka tells Obi-Wan to tell Anakin himself, but Obi-Wan never does tell Anakin, which is kind of sad, because if he had heard maybe that line, especially if he heard it from Ahsoka, who knows how things would have turned out. Granted, then we wouldn't have gotten the rest of Star Wars, obviously, but that just, so I think, puts it in context, like, he didn't hear the right things he needed to hear. No, he kept on hearing the Jedi alright, but he knows they're doing something wrong, and like, he almost needed to hear it from somebody else to kind of validate his positions, who was not Chancellor Palpatine. I'm just saying, it's like, it is amazing, it's like, there are all these nice connecting threads to Revenge of the Sith, but not in a way that destroys Revenge of the Sith, which I wouldn't expect to happen anyhow, but to enhance the story and add some extra context and all that to what was going on, while still being its own story. Because remember, Ahsoka profoundly knows that the Council is not always right. But I should mention, basically Obi-Wan and Ahsoka's conversation got cut off because there was an attack, and Maul and his Mandalorians basically attacked one of the positions of clones guarding the entrance to the underworld of the city. And one clone, a younger clone, and I'm using that term specifically because Maul and the Mandalorians attacked. Maul was there personally by the sound of it, and just found Jesse, and realized that Jesse was one of the older clones, meaning one of the clones that had been around the longest, so would know Ahsoka is the best, and took Jesse alive. Jesse is also an ARC trooper at this point as well. So just something there. And he uses the Force to interrogate Jesse, very much like Kylo Ren attempts to do with Rey, and succeeds in doing with Poe Dameron. And we see that in some other places too, using the Force to interrogate somebody, using the Force and just rip the information out of their head. So he learned this is how Maul really learns who Ahsoka is, and then approaches Ahsoka with that offer. And he also releases Jesse doing this, which I think is interesting. Like, why would he? Like, why would he release Jesse, not just kill him or whatever? I would not be surprised if he put a suggestion in Jesse's head. Not necessarily to benefit him, but maybe more so to protect Ahsoka if he knows like his master's plan is coming into fruition. I'm serious about this because let's remember, if we go back to I don't have anything with Star Wars Rebels up here, back to Star Wars Rebels, and when Ahsoka and Maul meet up on Malachor, because they go to Malachor for some reason, because the Holocron and all of that, and this is where they meet Maul for the first time, they have a cold and icy meeting, but it was also like people who have met before. It's like very much when they meet, it's not so much as enemies, but just people who don't like each other. Which this episode does kind of set up like, yeah, they're not really on the same side, but they do kind of have a common enemy. It's different, and it puts new context on that interaction and shows that things are way more complex than simply good versus evil. Good and, good and bad. Because some bad guys don't like the evil guy. It's probably the best way of putting it. Even bad guys don't always want to work with the villain guy. That's like how I can best describe it. But another thing, we find out that Maul has ordered the Shadow Collective leaders into hiding. We saw a member of Black Sun, a member of the Pikes, and would look to be a human. Crimson Dawn, perhaps? I don't know. I don't think Crimson Dawn was exclusively a human organization, but at least for a while the leader was human-looking, and that's what this one character is. So Crimson Dawn was also shouted out during the Ahsoka's Walkabout arc as well. And so he's ordered basically the Shadow Collective should go into hiding. And if you look at in Solo, the Crimson Dawn and the Pikes do interact with each other and have a working relationship, probably because of the Shadow Collective. Which I think is kind of interesting that Moss is basically in the criminal underworld laying his seeds that will basically be sown in the Empire, hopefully. Maul is planning. He is basically taking a chapter out of Darth Sidious's book. And like his goal with Mandalore, well, I wonder if like he intended Mandalore, no, to basically his goal was like to take out Anakin and then use Mandalore as basically a thorn in the Chancellor's plans. Like, he's become probably the most annoying thorn for Palpatine out there. Because, like, he's no longer loyal to Palpatine, but he's still a bad guy, so... Like, how does Palpatine reconcile that with his own plan? And I wonder if that's part of the reason why Palpatine had Sidious and Grievous stage the attack on Coruscant, to prevent Maul's plan from fulfilling. That would be a very Palpatine move. Until, before he became overconfident. Not that he probably wasn't always overconfident, but, before, the bulk of the crux of his plan succeeded. Is probably the best way of putting it. But, yeah, I'm talking about lots of how this episode really connects with the grander story of it. But what about the episode itself? I've talked about elements of it, but what did I think of the episode as a whole? It's a pretty good episode. As I said, it picks up right where the previous episode leaves off. And the opening of the episode is very much the same as the previous episode. Though the musical cues they decided to go with were different, and there is no introductory recap, so basically no crawl alternative. Which I think is very interesting. I think very much... I was kind of expecting for there to be that recap, but there wasn't. And I think that very much fits in and displays how this episode is not really its own episode, but more the second part in what you could consider a movie. I remember from watching reviews when the previous episode comes out, some people were wondering whether or not potentially that when they originally decided to return to the Clone Wars, the original goal was just to do the Siege of Mandalore as basically kind of a standalone animated movie. And I do kind of like that idea, and the way this episode opened kind of does give credence to that idea. Because it opens up, you have the old style Lucasfilm Limited logo, you have, but not the same type of introduction, and actually no recap, so that really does contribute. And then it goes to part 2, Shadow Apprentice, which I think is very much, because what is it part 2 of? It's part 2 of the Siege of Mandalore. Like, if I would not be surprised if, when this is over, if there's either an official combined version for all these episodes where the cuts are taken out, or if there's going to be a fan edit. It'll probably be a fan edit anyhow, but it would not surprise me because of the way this, basically the way this has all been structured. But the lack of a recap in this episode very much, I think, does contribute to continuing the cinematic feeling and support the idea that this was originally intended to be something more along the lines of a animated movie for Disney Plus to close out the Clone Wars. And then they decided, no, we have the Bad Batch arc, so we might as well do that, and people did seem to enjoy the story, and probably good to get some more character development for Ahsoka out of the way too. And so he kind of did a little retooling with the Bad Batch, and finished off the Ahsoka walkabout arc, and to prepare people for the Siege of Mandalore. That is very much, I think, what was going through their heads when in all the production stuff. That's only my thoughts. I'm not positive. It's just the impression I've got from what I've seen and heard so far. So really, the only thing left to talk about is what's going to come up next. Well, Maul's going to get away, Order 66 is going to happen, and Ahsoka and Rex are going to fake their own deaths. That is basically the bare minimum we know. We know that Ahsoka and Maul get away. We figure the Ahsoka book and some stuff that Dave Filoni talked about during Rebels and released in Rebels was that Ahsoka and Rex faked their death. So that is what I'm going to say as bare minimum going to happen. But other than that, we don't know what is going to happen. Will Rex start Order 66? Will he just act along for a little bit till he can get Ahsoka away and help her? Or will he snap out of it like one of the clones did in the canon comics? We don't know. I hope my prediction that his inhibitor chip never worked is correct, but it just remains to be seen what's actually going to happen. But we know things are not going to turn out well for anyone involved, especially the Mandalorians, because somehow Gar Saxon will become the Viceroy of Mandalore during all of this. So, there's that. I wonder, he pledges his loyalty between now, the Clone Wars and Rebels to the Empire, but he's still technically part of the Shadow Collective, in a way. And I have a feeling the Shadow Collective is once you're in, you're never out kind of deal. So, Maul still has some influence on Mandalore. He does still have the Darksaber in Rebels, so it's potential. But you know, he never uses the Darksaber so far in the Clone Wars, which is interesting. I wonder if he's already hidden it on Dathomir. It's a possibility. It is a possibility. But alas, we don't know. But what we do know is that we'll find out next week. Well, maybe not all those questions, but we'll find out some of them next week. So we just got to wait and see. But in the meantime, what did you think of the episode? I would love to hear from you. The comment section is down below. If you enjoyed my video, please make sure you give a like or dislike it if you prefer. Be sure to follow me on social media, Facebook and Twitter. Links are in the description, as well as other links for my Discord server if you would like to join, or my Patreon page if you would like to support the channel. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe and ring that bell. And feel free to check out the video or the playlist on screen now. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you always.